This is the Full Aim, the least expensive cardioid lavalier mic that doesn't require phantom power. And we're going to take a look at it, and more importantly, a listen to it on this episode of Moondog R&D. Hey, Moondog here. Thanks for tuning in again to another episode of Moondog R&D. And today I will be reviewing this Full Aim lavalier mic. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am using a lavalier mic right now, but not this one. I'm using an inexpensive Evator, and I've also used Pop Voice microphones. These are, $10-15, less than $20 each, because I don't have a huge budget. I do all this stuff by myself, and for many years I just used my DSLR camera and I plugged it right in, and now I'm using my phone, and so are many of you. And lavalier mics are great because they help isolate the voice of the person that you're filming, so you're hearing more of their voice and less of the stuff that's going around. And of course, if they're speaking even in a room, you're picking up a lot of noise. If you weren't using a lavalier mic and you were just using the microphone built into your camera or your phone, you're picking up the sound of the room itself, their voice bouncing off the walls, the furniture, things going on in the room, around the house, a lot of extraneous noise that you don't want to capture. And if you use a lavalier mic, you get more of your subject's voice. Now, most lavalier mics that are inexpensive, like this Evator that I'm using, they are omnidirectional. And that means that the pickup pattern is a circle around the entire microphone. And they call that an omnidirectional or circular polar pattern. Well, for more professional video creators, they use a cardioid. That's a heart-shaped polar pattern microphone. Now, those microphones and lavalier mics, or lav mics for short, those cardioid mics tend to be a little more expensive because they typically are powered by an external source that powers the microphone. They call that phantom power. So not only are the lav mics expensive, typically over $100 for cardioid pattern mics, but you also have to buy a mixer, an external power source that has an external power source to power the microphone. So not only are you buying the expensive lav mic, but you're also buying the extra gear, and you also have to use that, and it gets a little more complicated. Anyway, I was very excited to see this Full Aim microphone because not only was it relatively inexpensive, but it also does not require phantom power. You can plug it directly into your phone or your camera. And it has a couple of different options. You can, with phones and cameras, cameras require three ring, 3.5-inch jacks. That's for stereo, left and right, and the microphone. And typical cameras only require the 2-band jacks, which are left and right channels. So oftentimes you have to get an adapter. This one has it built in, so that's kind of cool. And it also has a choice. It gives you the choice between two polar patterns, the omnidirectional and the cardioid. Without further ado, let's test this out. For a real-world test of the microphone, I've taken it to a crowded, noisy environment full of hard reflective surfaces. A shopping mall, the weekend after Christmas. And we're at the noisiest area of the mall, the food court, at lunchtime. I have a 2-channel wireless setup with the Full Aim lav mic connected to the first channel. We are at the Stonestown Shopping Center Mall in the food court, which is probably the loudest place in any mall, and this place especially because it's right after Christmas. So there's just a ton of people here, ton of background noise. So this is what you're hearing from me in terms of my sound setup. I've got the lavs on one channel and the Rode on another channel. So this is what you're hearing here. And I've got it set up at cardioid mode. I'm going to switch over to Omni mode now. And this is what it sounds like with the Omni mode set up on the lavalier, which is your typical lavalier is an omnidirectional. So I'm going to switch it back to cardioid mode. And so hopefully you're hearing me a little more clearly with a little less background noise. I can barely hear myself, to be quite honest. It is that loud in here. Let's hear that scene again, but I'm going to play a sample from each of the sources back to back twice so you can hear the differences more clearly. First, we'll hear the difference between omnidirectional and cardioid. Pay close attention to the background noise rather than my voice. I've got it set up at cardioid mode. I'm going to switch over to omni mode, which is where your typical lavalier is an omnidirectional. You've got it set up at cardioid mode. I'm going to switch over to omni mode, which is where your typical lavalier is an omnidirectional. As you can see, well, really here in the sample footage, there's a greater amount of background ambient noises being picked up by the microphone in omnidirectional mode. So much more of the cacophony in the food court in the omnidirectional footage, and this can be very distracting or even annoying when you're watching a video. Now, I'd like to point out that the Rode Wireless Go 2 has a pretty decent built-in omnidirectional microphone in the unit itself. So let's compare the difference in sound quality between the Rode Wireless Go without a lavalier mic and with the Filaim mic attached to it. We are at the Stonestown Shopping Center Mall in the food court, which is probably the loudest place in any mall. We are at the Stonestown Shopping Center Mall in the food court, which is probably the loudest place in any mall. We are at the Stonestown Shopping Center Mall in the food court, which is probably the loudest place in any mall. We are at the Stonestown Shopping Center Mall in the food court, which is probably the loudest place in any mall. What I'm hearing in those samples is nowhere near a complete isolation of my voice from the background din, but what I am noticing is a difference in the overall amount of ambient noise in the background. But what I also hear is a reduction in the overall bass. But if that bothers you, you can adjust that in post in your final mix. Overall, I think that it's a fair trade-off. Next, we're going to torture test this microphone at the Academy of Sciences Museum at a live dance performance with loud amplified music, and not just any dance performance, a tap dance performance in an enclosed glass courtyard with hundreds of parents and kids. It was so loud in there, my companions could barely hear me shouting right next to them. Okay. All right, so this is a good test of the noise, because I certainly would not expect to hear anything close to me. Okay, it's far from perfect, but this is way better than I was expecting from a $15 or even a $50 lav mic. For a budget lav mic, this is pretty darn good. So if you're interested in picking one up, and I'm certainly going to pick up another one based on my testing here, I'll include product links as well as more product information on my full written article in my blog at moondogindustries.com. Definitely check that out. Use those links because it helps support this channel. It doesn't cost more to use those links than not use those links. So it's a free way to support this channel. And another way you can help is by simply hitting the like, subscribe, and notification bell buttons, because you're taking control of the algorithm and letting it know that folks like you would like to watch this video. So thank you. And thanks again for watching. Moondog out. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, please share it on forums, Facebook, Reddit, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, MeWe, whatever social media you're on. And if you want to see all of my videos, check out moondogindustries.com.